lot of our people, our young nation, are leaving to find their place. And they weren't ready for our people.
Rival gang pulled a gun out on me, stuck it in my face, stuck it in my kid's mom's face. I didn't care, man. He loaded it, he cocked it. I wrestled it from him, and I shot him in the leg, took his leg off with it. So.
In their minds, I think they're forming a brotherhood of like-minded people, people that all feel disadvantaged and outcast or the outside of society, and they decided they were going to take theirs.
Winnipeg is the capital city of Manitoba, Canada. It's a prairie city with a population just under 800,000, about 10% of which are of Aboriginal descent. In addition to having the largest urban Aboriginal population in the country, Winnipeg is also known for something else. It's been Canada's murder capital 16 times since 1981.
Officers showed off today a huge haul of guns and drugs and other...
And the source of the majority of this crime isn't exactly something that people would expect in the middle of Canada. Aboriginal street gangs.
It was the only thing you ever wanted to be, you know what I mean? Fuck, I was only 8 years old when I did my first B&E, you know, so there was no other way than the gang life when we were kids.
And what part of that did you look at and say, like, yeah, I want that?
Well, belonging and money. First belong, then the money.
Gangs like the Manitoba Warriors, Indian Posse, and Native Syndicate are the most infamous of Winnipeg's 35 active gangs.
You know, you fucking stab up the first guy you fight, you know, ain't nobody gonna fuck with you, so that's what I did, man. I just fucking, you know, made it known that, you know, if anybody's gonna fuck with me, you know, I'm gonna fucking stab you up after. You know, so think twice about fighting me, you know, I may be a little guy, but, you know, think twice about trying to muscle me, think twice about trying to tell me something, think twice about trying to take something of mine, think twice about trying to talk to me like I'm a punk, you know what I mean? Because, you know, I'll fucking stab you, so.
Nationally, we have the reputation of being the murder crime capital of Canada and violent crime capital. A lot of people refer to Winnipeg as Murderpeg.
We met up with James Jewell, a former Winnipeg police officer. He served 25 years on the force and 8 years in homicide.
For someone who's never heard about Aboriginal gang violence in Winnipeg, how would you explain what's going on in the city to them?
When I started policing in 1987 in Winnipeg, we really didn't have Aboriginal street gangs. And there was an evolution that took place with the outlaw motorcycle gangs. They needed to build relationships with people to do their dirty work for them, to push their drugs and move their drugs. So doing the gang's heavy lifting, they were always looking for someone to step in and play those roles, to insulate themselves from law enforcement. And when it came to a lot of these Aboriginal kids, they came from disadvantaged homes, and the opportunity to make fast money, real money, appealed to a lot of them. And the level of violence that they were using was escalating and really waking us up to the reality that Winnipeg had a gang problem.
And why does it seem like there's so many First Nations and Métis members in gangs and creating their own Aboriginal-specific gangs in the city?
The common denominator I think that they would have is poverty. The gang makes a lot of promises. They promise money, they promise employment by virtue of drug trafficking, they promise brotherhood, respect, love, all these things that the gang promises to these kids that don't get it in their lives. And in reality, all of those things are false promises.
As with most of the Americas, the land that's now Canada was once inhabited by a number of Aboriginal tribes. When Britain colonized Canada, irreversible conflicts and divides were created between those native to the land and newcomers. And it's this fallout from colonization that many believe is the root of the wide range of issues that Aboriginal people face in Canada today. We went to the Saugeen First Nations Reserve outside of the city to meet with an elder and community teacher named Eric Courchen.
My father, and I listened to his stories, they were independent. They had independent thinking. They didn't rely on anybody to feed them. They fed themselves. They looked after themselves, and they did it from the land. So what ended up happening was that the government kind of created this dependency, right? When they forced our people onto this reserve.
In addition to essentially imprisoning Aboriginal people on reserves, Canada also systematically tried to strip them of their culture and way of life with the creation of what were known as residential schools. Indian residential schools were created as early as 1840, and by 1884, attendance was mandatory for all Aboriginal people under the age of 16.
Large numbers of Aboriginal people's children were forcibly seized by the government and in my opinion, incarcerated in residential schools where they were told that to be an Indian was bad and they were prohibited from speaking their language or practicing their cultural beliefs separated from their families. We did this deliberately. Canada did this deliberately to try to eliminate Indians, to try to get rid of Indianness, to kill the Indian in a child, as one Ottawa bureaucrat put it.
In the 1960s, Manitoba's hydroelectric projects flooded and devastated the traditional hunting and fishing grounds of Aboriginal people. That forced them to move in droves from the reserves to the city. Many of them arrived without job skills and settled in the poorest, most dangerous neighborhoods.
My mom was in residential school at the age of 4, up until she was 16, and then she ran away from there.
Bonnie's mother was one of the more than 150,000 children who were forced to attend residential school.
While she was in residential school, she was abused, like physically, mentally, emotionally, wasn't allowed to speak her language.
What would happen if she spoke her language?
She would get beaten with a ruler or a whip, or they chopped off all her hair. So then when she was out raising us kids, she became an alcoholic. She didn't know how to deal with her abuse. And then all the abuse she went through, she would abuse us children. And then I grew up like that, not abusing my kids, but I became an alcoholic, a drug addict. I joined a gang because that's where I found security and
probably identity, you had no idea about.
I didn't know who I was.
And how have you seen that, impact your son, for example?
Look at him now, he's in a gang.
The North End, Winnipeg's infamous inner-city neighborhood, is where Bonnie's son David grew up. We met up with him and his friend Ian. Both of them have been in gangs for most of their lives.
We were real bad car thieves in the city. We was a notorious car thief here. Us two were high-ranking.
Yeah.
They were on us every day.
We used to, just for fun, we would park 10 cars, just chilling like this, just on the side.
There'd be a whole group of us. We would take about 10 cars and we'll just smash them up, just crash into each other, just for fun, man. Just we didn't give a shit. I don't know.
And how do you, how do you go from stealing cars to being affiliated with a crew?
We were always affiliated. We started our own as kids, and everybody that was close when we were younger, we started our own, and we just went from there. And gradually, we moved on to a different gang as we got older.
Bigger gang, yeah.
What was the gang you were in when you were kids? The ones you started?
Money Over Bitches.
Money Over Bitches?
Yeah.
And what did you guys join after?
Manitoba Warriors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why did you start a crew when you were a kid? Is that even a thought in your head, or is that something you just did?
We just did, man.
Born into it.
Born into it, yeah. It's just everything we seen growing up, man. Like I said, my mom was affiliated with the Warriors when I was younger, and my dad was Indian Posse here. And
my dad was with the Los Bravos, yeah. So and it just went on from there.
So when you were, growing up, going from starting your own crew to being a part of Manitoba Warriors, were you making a lot of money? Is that what you wanted? What's one of the big reasons that you'd be in a
money.
career? Yeah?
It's all about money, huh? That's what it is, yeah.
At 16 years old, I owned 4 cars, I had dirt bikes, I had quads, I had everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 215, use the gold chains, gold bracelets, rings, a ring on every finger, cars.
$10,000 chain. It seemed like after a while you get sick of all that, man. I don't know.
Yeah, you grow out of that shit, right?
Because you were just so fascinated by it as a kid, and now you just started to realize, and
it's all heat.
Yeah.
Attracts attention.
So like growing up, like, you know, what was that like? Like, was there, you had to fend for yourself, you had to look after yourself, was there
Pretty
food
much,
on the table?
Yeah.
Exactly what it is.
I was paying my mom's bills at 13, 14, because she was so bad into her drug habit. Like, I pretty much raised my younger ones to a point until they were old enough to take care of themselves, so.
Was that normal with most of your friends? Like most of your friends?
Yeah, most of us, we were like that. We were providers. That's why we did what we did.
Yeah.
Because our parents weren't capable of doing it.
What do you make of how some of these gangs are co-opting identity in their crew? So for example, they have names like Indian Posse, Native Syndicate, Manitoba Warriors, trying to take their culture and creating it into something different.
Historically, as part of our nation, there is a process in life where we all are warriors, and we become warriors for the people. That teaching, that being a warrior hasn't left our people, but it's coming up within our young people because they form these relationship gangs. Unfortunately, it's built upon some of our family networks that were damaged. But it all comes down to identity. What lots of our people are hungry for is that identity. In that drug life, gang life, that's there too.
Experts say that continuing high dropout rates and little economic opportunity means that membership in gangs for Aboriginal youth could double in the next 10 years.
The age structure of the Aboriginal population is much, much younger than the age structure of the population at large, and it's growing more rapidly. And so the factory in which these street gang guys are being manufactured, that factory just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And the kinds of things that are being done now to try to address the problem are futile. As a society, we're simply not prepared to deal with the source of the problem. And the source of the problem is the severe racialized poverty that we allow to continue to exist. It will continue to be violent. Young people will continue to kill other young people. They'll continue to be incarcerated. This story will just go on and on and on unless somebody decides to take some serious action dealing with the root source of the problem.
Despite only making up 3% of Canada's population, about a quarter of incarcerated men are Aboriginal. David served 5 years at Stony Mountain Penitentiary. There, he only became more involved with the Manitoba Warriors.
So where are we right now?
We're at Stony Mountain Penitentiary.
Yeah?
This is where I did my 5-year sentence here.
Yeah, and what did you do while you were at Stony? You were telling me about how you made money and stuff like that.
There's a lot of drug activity. I made a lot of money in there. Did what I had to do to survive in there.
Yeah.
But it also helped being who I was with the crew, and so. But anyway, this is where I did my 5 years for shooting that guy.
I feel like, you know, the reason why Canada has prisons is, you know, the idea is you go in there, you do your time, you think, you come out as a, you know, better person, and you're not going to be affiliated anymore. Do you think that's true?
No, you actually go in there learning a lot more than what you knew before.
Oh, yeah? It's
not a place where you rehabilitate yourself. Some people, I guess, do, but a lot of it is just playing the system to get out of it. So.
Aboriginal culture, identity, like, does that at all play into gang culture in Winnipeg?
I don't think so.
No?
It's just, you know, for the select few, like, we do take interest in our culture and that, and we do learn the ceremonies and everything. But other than that, we just.
But that's not going to necessarily keep you away from.
No, because none of that's going to solve the poverty issue or the fact that you haven't had nothing to eat today, where I can go sit in a crack shack or something, sell some drugs, make a pocket full of cash, and then there you go. I got my new clothes, new shoes, stuff my mom's not giving me, and shit like that.
What do you think could be done to end gang culture in Winnipeg?
It'll never end.
Yeah.
Plain and simple, never end. Never.
For many, gang culture has become the only culture they know.
Well, it's just me and my son, man. It's just me and my boy. I just take care of me and my boy, that's it. I don't give a fuck about nobody, no. I don't want him to be like me. But I don't really know how to fucking show them any difference, you know, it's kind of hard, it's, you know, it's like, it's on my skin, man, it's, you know, it's the way I talk, it's the fucking, it's my friends, you know what I mean, my kids' uncles are all my bros, they're all fucking gang members, you know what I mean, like, that scares me in a way because I don't know how to teach my son right from wrong because I myself don't know right from wrong, you know what I mean? Like, I don't even know right from, like, I do, but I don't, even though I don't want to show my boy that way of life, my boy's still gonna know what's up, and he's gonna know what I am, and he's gonna know who he is, and he's gonna know this is how we do it here.
Canada succeeded in mostly destroying the cultural traditions and identity of Aboriginal people, and the legacy of colonization has only replaced them with inner-city poverty and violence. With the last residential school closing in 1996, the memory of segregation is still fresh in their minds. And unless the government does something to address the racialized poverty in urban settings, gang culture in Winnipeg will continue to erode the Aboriginal community from within.